So I'm working on Ripple.fm. It's a podcast network platform that I created. And so private podcasts are a thing on it. And so I'm working on the settings panels for private podcasts, specifically the integrations panels. And so a UI pattern that I use a lot when I'm working on a settings page like this, which has, multiple subsets of options and fields. So I'm going to walk through my panels component, how I designed it, how it's wired up, and how I'm turning it into a reusable component that I can use across all of my projects and products. Let's collapse this and let's look in to see what we're looking at. So each of these panels can be opened and closed. Each one has an icon, a title, a description, and a little chevron to show whether it's opened or closed or not. Now, depending on what the panel is for, I'll change out the icon. And sometimes I don't even want an icon. And sometimes I'll have a short description to go with each panel, sometimes not, and just use a title. And sometimes I want one panel to be opened by default. Other times I want them all to be closed. And sometimes I want it to work like an accordion, where if I open one panel and then switch to another, it closes all of the other panels, basically only allowing one panel to be opened at a time. Or other times I want to allow multiple panels to be opened at the same time. So all of those options are built in so that whenever I reuse this component, I can tweak the settings for whatever context it's in. And as always, this is all mobile optimized. Let's break it down to mobile. We'll scroll down a bit, and it works on all these screen sizes as well. Okay, let's see how this is wired up. So we're looking at the integrations page here, and this is the component right here. It starts with a Rails partial that I called panels, and that contains the content, which are these 3 panels, and each one of those is a partial called panel. And then inside each of those is the content. That's where I'm going to put like the form fields. Currently, it's just a couple of placeholder paragraph tags. So the panels container is just a simple container. I'll get into what these options are all about, but it just sets a couple of containing Tailwind classes. It sets the stimulus controller, that's called the panels controller, and a couple of stimulus values. And then inside that, we have the 3 individual panels. This is where most of the action is happening. And so this is the partial that controls a panel. It's got all of and this is what will output the actual content. There are a couple of different options built into it, and I'll get into all that. You'll see each panel has a containing div with a class called panel closed, and we swap that out with either panel closed or panel opened. I like to use these really descriptive classes when they're custom classes like this, because it just makes it easier to maintain and know what I'm looking at. So I try to avoid having these like separate CSS files, except for cases like this where we're just basically adding and removing a single class. So so I extracted out this CSS file to handle panels that are closed and panels that are opened, and that just basically controls whether the content is shown, that's this area, and which version of this chevron, up or down, is shown. I could have used a Tailwind rotate thing on that, but instead I'm just kind of showing and hiding the up and down version of that icon. By the way, I use Font Awesome for all of the icons. It's my favorite library for icons. All right, now let's take a look at the stimulus controller. So it's pretty simple. Every panel is a target, and then we've got a couple of stimulus values. One is for whether there is a default panel to be opened or not, and whether or not we're going to allow the accordion setting, right? I should have probably named it accordion, but it says one open. That's either true or false. All right, so on connect, when we initially load the page, we want to check to see if we want to have a default value open. So for example, if I wanted to, always load the page with ConvertKit settings, soon to be kit settings, to always have that opened by default, all I need to do is add that option, default panel ID kit. So each panel gets a unique ID, which we set in the panel ID attribute. So if we just set that and I refresh the page, the ConvertKit panel is opened by default, and these are closed. So that happens here on the connect. It just checks for the existence of that, and then it opens it. I'm going to undo that. The other thing that I can do on the panels container is, again, that accordion setting. So if I want to, let's see, what did I name it? Yeah, one open. So by default, only allowing one to be opened is set to true by default. So if I don't set that at all, then it'll be true. But if I set that to false, so if I do one open false, then you'll see that I can open this panel and I can open multiple panels at the same time. And when I either set that to true or I just remove it, one is open and then the other is open, more like an accordion. I think I like that better. All right, so now moving into the individual panels. Again, we want to give each panel a unique ID. And then if I do want an icon, then I can set the icon name. This is an icon name in the Font Awesome library. I can just set any name there. So for example, if I want to change this from an envelope to a rocket, let's say, let's just do that. Now we're using the rocket icon. And so I like to keep it simple like that. But if I do want to have more fine-grained control over which Font Awesome classes, then I can use the custom icon classes option that I built in as well. Or a lot of times I just don't even want to have an icon at all. So I can just remove that icon, that option altogether. And as you can see, now this panel has no icon. I also tweaked the padding on the content to align to the left edge. You'll see the panels that have an icon, the content will stay aligned like that. And let's just bring that back, set it back to envelope, and we don't even need that. Okay. All right, so next we have the content of the header. We've got the title, of course, which we can tweak there. We've got the description. Now, a lot of times I just don't even need to have a description, right? So we can just knock that out. And so now this panel has no description, just the content. And then the content of the panel is what we yield inside the block, just like that. And so that's basically all there is to it. Anytime I need to have panels in this application or any of my other products, I'm just going to kind of reach for this panels component that I now have. So there you go. Thanks for watching.